This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns: Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Welcome to the Irish NFL show, brought to you by Quimbet. Wow, whatever the pain that voiceover guy, I tell you, it's not enough. I'd buy anything from that guy. What a warm-throated and I bet very handsome individual he is in real life as well. Yeah, we have big plans for 2026. That's our big reveal. We are going stateside and we're bringing a crew with us. And by crew, we mean you. So the Irish NFL show is partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel. We're going to be running a package trip during the regular season next year. We're going to time it so that we line up a Thursday night football game and a Sunday game in close proximity to one another. So say, for example, we go to the Link to go and see the Eagles on a Thursday, go and see the Giants on a Sunday in New York. That just off the top of my head, it probably won't be that. We might actually get a good team in on Sunday. It could work out anyway. Who knows? Those dates, times, and locations have to be confirmed when the schedule drops next May. In the meantime, you can get more details and register your interest at irishnflshow.com/tours. All will be revealed next May when we get that schedule drop and we can start planning that trip of a lifetime in earnest. Right, to the week 14 action we go. Brian O'Leary and Shane Brennan with me, Conor Brophy, this evening on our live show as we recap that action. And lads, it absolutely lived up to expectations. In fact, dare I say it, it even exceeded expectations. We had 3 instant classics over the weekend. We had Chiefs Texans, we had Bears Packers at Lambeau, which we will get to in the second segment. And, you know, spoiler alert, I will not be taking the shirt off because the Bears did not get over the line, but we shall talk about that in just a little bit. We also had Bengals Bills, but we thought we'd gather together some of the action in our first segment, which we've loosely entitled Cooked or Cooking. Shane, the Chiefs starting to look like they might indeed be cooked, and the Texans very much cooking.
Very much so. This is when I was thinking of the whole sort of like cooking thing. I was like, this is the game where we finally know where both of these teams rank in terms of what they are trying to achieve this year. Let's start off with the Chiefs. I think are the biggest storyline, because let's be fair about this. Where I think we're coming to a situation now where we're probably not going to be talking with the Chiefs much longer now for the rest of the season. I know there's still a world where they win out the rest of their 4 games, and O'Brien was making the point off air, and maybe he's making it on air in instant reaction last night, that they still have maybe an easier schedule. Although the Broncos on Christmas Day, I wouldn't say is an easy game to win.
Wait till we're left with Broncos Jags in the championship game, and then you send an AFC team to the Super Bowl that gets absolutely dismantled by the Eagles, and it won't be so funny then. We'd be crying out for the Chiefs at that point.
Well, actually, if you're going to lock on something now, the fact I'm looking at this AFC.
You know what? You notice I deliberately excluded your Patriots from the championship game there just to troll you.
Yeah, we'll win it next year. It's grand. But if you actually look at that AFC rankings, you're like you look at and think that the teams in the NFC would wipe the floor with just about any of them. But anyway, let's get back to the Chiefs at the moment, because I think we have to go back to the genesis of what is happening with Kansas City, and that is just a complete shattering of their bulletproof facade. And we saw that in a lot of key areas of the game last night. Firstly, Patrick Mahomes isn't completing passes. And when he is, it's mistakes. I think the line coming from Chris Collinsworth last night is that the season is being defined by miscues from the stars. And that's what we got. I mean, Travis Kelce, he was surrounded by 3 Houston defenders. Houston defense played very well last night. He lets the ball slip at a key moment. It's Mahomes not being able to complete passes. Andy Reid making a bad play call on 4th and 1 on their own 35-yard line when it's 10-all. Lets the ball go turnover and downs.
Yeah, let us let that one breathe for a little bit, because that's the most un-Chiefs-like there's a what do you call it, an essay in that one. What's the word I'm looking for? Oral history in that one alone. You get all the participants together. It's a poor call by Andy Reid. They can kick a field goal at that point. Your offense has been misfiring and just not playing well. Texans seem to have the better of you, while your defense is actually playing really, really well. Manti Te'o was on NFL Game Day earlier saying, I'm sitting on that defense and I'm thinking, Coach, you don't trust me.
Yeah, it's just it's unusual as well. But when we see Andy Reid trying to defend his decision of play calling as well as he was in the press conference afterwards, and he was like, "Look, we're usually doing really well and converting on fourth downs." They haven't actually really. I mean, on third downs this year as well, they're only converting with 35%, which I think is Colin Cowher was saying that's Jets and Titans level of being able to convert on these plays. And it was just things that just don't normally happen like happened last night. Like, of course, the doink, the missed kick. There was an underthrown pass in the early third quarter to Hollywood Brown, where if that was last year, that ball was thrown over the head of Hollywood Brown. He had it in his hands, and it was a touchdown. He had to sort of scram back and get it. Still a nice chunk play, but it goes from being a score to just being a long play. There's another one where it's a shot to Thornton, but it was punched out by Kamari Lassiter, who also got an interception later on in the game. Shout out to him. What a great game by him on the Houston defense. So many things happening which just aren't Chiefs-like. And I think the genesis of it is that ever since they were completely annihilated by the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl last year, I think the fear factor has come out of the jersey. I was talking to Pat Spillane a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the great Kerry team of the 70s and 80s. Lest I remind
such a long time ago since they were great. God, thanks for reminding us.
Well, quite a long time ago. But he was saying that whenever the Kerry team played against a lot of Ulster teams in particular, he was saying that the teams actually respected the Kerry jersey and the Kerry players too much in the first half. That they waited until too late in the game to realize that actually they're good enough to beat them. I felt like there's a lot of this during the time of the Chiefs dynasty, and this happens with a lot of.
Brian, like Dublin won 6 All-Irelands in a row within living memory. Certainly within your living memory, Shane. In fact, in the last 10 years, but you go back to Kerry for your definition of greatness.
Well,
you've repaid me for snubbing the Patriots now.
That's exactly what it is, Connor. Yeah, you gave him all the momentum to go and do that. Motivation.
Well, I was just saying this to point that maybe Spillane's after getting into my head again. That's just he's completely planted the seed there. The point I was trying to say is,
what about the Pats Spillane? Isn't there a Spillane? Or do you call him Spillane? But it's really Spillane. There's a Spillane playing for the Pats, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Christian Spillane, who knocked the 7 shades out of Jackson Dart last week. But just the point I was trying to make is that. Once you lose respect for the jersey and the fear factor from the jersey, we saw this from Manchester United at a certain point the last decade as well, then you have confidence that your defense can get third down conversion. You have confidence that CJ Stroud, even though he was under pressure a lot last night, was able to make all these passes. Psychologically, that's such a huge, huge shift from what everybody else that was faced the Chiefs so far this year has had to come up against. And look, as we can clutch the straws and say that the Chiefs might still make the playoffs, and maybe we might even hope that be the case, considering that it doesn't look like Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow is going to be there either. But the crack in this dynasty is quite something.
Brian, we've seen the Texans get to the playoffs the last couple of years and win playoff games, but not quite have enough to advance to where they really want to be. You're looking at this defense and you're thinking, I mean, I don't know if I'm overstating the case here, but from what I've seen, this is the best defense since the Legion of Boom. Like they are just awesome in every single position at every single level. It's not just the defensive front, it's not just the linebackers, it's not just the secondary. It's the combination, it's the hustle that they play with, it's the culture that they have. They feel like they can just take care of any offense in the league, and their offense just needs to be good enough. Right now, it's looking like a little bit more than good enough. They're building a bit of momentum. Not a team you want to play down the stretch.
Yeah, I think there's a maturity with this defense that's probably a year later than what we expected, Connor. If you recall last off-season when we were doing our preseason predictions, I know Kieran Boyle was very high on them, potentially even going to the Super Bowl for that particular point. Real strong defense can really come on from what they saw the previous year. And CJ Stroud would develop into another year. So he was littered with injuries last year. He has been this year as well to a certain extent with the concussion, but you are seeing that kind of model now starting to evolve. You saw last night in particular, and it didn't come as a surprise despite the Chiefs' ill form that they won last night, because if you look at the record over the last 3 to 4 times in which they've gone in there, they played really strong. They come out the wrong side of them, some really tight games. Remember, it was overshadowed last year by the serious injury to the wide receiver. Don't think he's ever really recovered from that. But to your point, yes, it's coming together. They've knocked off the Bills, they've knocked off the Chiefs, and whatever we think of the Chiefs, as you alluded to there, going into Arrowhead is still a very difficult environment for any team, any player. And right now, can you bet against them going and winning this division? I know the Jags are hot as well, but they're on such a winning streak. They've got some tough games going down the stretch, but right now it's starting to come together for D'Amico Ryans. Like, this is exactly how he would have pictured it, isn't it? Like, Connor, this team will defense first, complementary offense. Nico Collins, the rookie the rookie running back is starting to come to the fold as well now. He's really starting to come on. So they've got a nice tight end there in Dalton Schultz. They've got a nice offense, but they're never going to go out and put 30, 40 points on teams. It's going to be these type of games continuously over the course of the season into the playoffs, tight games, coming out the right side of these 2017 games. I agree with what you said about the Chiefs. The game was there to be won for the Chiefs last night defensively, but they kind of got away from what works. They got away with what was working when they were struggling a couple of years ago and made the Super Bowl, which is lean on Spagnuolo to get a job done. But for the Texans right now, even if the end was a wild card, I wouldn't fancy them in the playoffs.
This AFC South, Shane, as we were talking about last week, has gone from being one of the divisions that you could peacefully ignore to just red hot. Texans on the charge, as we say. Jags after winning their fourth straight. I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to conclude that the Colts are cooked. I don't think there's going to be too much controversy over that. There's probably not too much doubt that the Jags are cooking either. In a weird way, and you'd never wish this on anyone, it's a terrible injury for Daniel Jones to do his Achilles in the game, and that really, unfortunately, sticks the fork in the Colts season. It's very hard to see them doing anything from this point on in. But in a weird way, it kind of gives them an excuse for a season that was already unraveling. They were the best team in the NFL over 8 games and really don't seem to have been able to shoot straight since.
Yeah, I think from the Colts point of view, what's going to be really disappointing for them is they're coming in with a lot of quarterback problems already. Riley Leonard looked like he might even be available this week. He's carrying a knee injury. If ever a team needed a Tommy DeVito to come in and back up Daniel Jones, it's Indianapolis right now. But I think the bigger thing that's going to happen here is how much draft capital they gave up in that Sauce Gardner trade. But it was quite clear they're going all in the lead up to that game in Germany after, like that defeat in Pittsburgh. Like I was watching it up in the tap house and I was there thinking, I was like, this seems like just like a bad game from a good team that'll be able to recover from this. They just couldn't get the run game going at all. And that's just not how anything has worked out. I mean, can you really read into much of the good performance in Germany against Atlanta? They had to go to overtime in a game when they were clearly the better team, but Jonathan Taylor had to run for over 220 yards. I mean, teams are starting to learn. If you can just get that extra 5% on shutting down the run game, but the plan B for the Colts just doesn't really work. So, yeah, it's very, very difficult to look ahead for them. And look, in a division where the Jags have not an easy enough run day to go to Denver, so that looks like that they're going to be moving ahead. And the Texans, just to round off on a point from earlier, their schedule is at home to the Cards, at home to the Raiders, away to the Chargers, and then at home to the Colts, who I think could very easily lose every game from here to the rest of the season. It looks like a division which looked sewn up for Indianapolis, 4 or 5 weeks ago, is going to be a shootout between two teams that isn't them.
And it's funny that you say that now. When we talked about the Texans not being a team you want to face down the stretch, we'll get to the Bengals shortly, who, despite their loss over the weekend, another team you now don't want to face down the stretch. The Colts you would have been wincing at earlier on the season. Now you're like, great, I'm glad they're on my schedule. You just never know. This is why you shouldn't be putting the W and L's on the chart before the games are played. Brian, from the Jags' perspective, that's 4 wins in a row now. I think 5 of the last 6. There's tension, it appears, in that locker room, or that at least there was. People weren't sure that Trevor Lawrence is actually Liam Cohen's guy or not. Brian Thomas Jr., people wondering why he's not being used to the extent that he was. There was talk of him being traded before the trade deadline, which obviously didn't happen. But whatever tension there may be, Liam Cohen knows how to scheme good offense. The defense has been improving steadily over the course of the season after a hot start where they tailed off a little bit. And the Jags very much are cooking.
Yeah, I suppose yesterday, the nature of the game yesterday is probably very different. If the injury doesn't happen to Daniel Jones, I still think they would have came out the right side if their offense looked really, really on top of their game early on, despite the poor weather. I think it's more relevant to previous games, Connor. You go into Arizona, and despite their struggles, you win a tight game in overtime. You win a tight game in Vegas in overtime. And whilst they're not marquee games in the season, and they're certainly games you should be winning, the camaraderie you get and the togetherness, and from the Bears, like with all due respect to last night's performance in terms of losing that game, the Bears have won so many games down the stretch late on that bodes well for a season, and starting to bode well for this Jags team, because despite the kind of scrutiny, as you touched on there, between Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. and other players questioning whether Lawrence is the future, here we are now in a situation where if you're not talking about the Texans, the hottest team in the division, it certainly is the Jags, and they're underdogs going into that game last night, Connor. They were 2.5-point underdogs against the Colts team. It's strange. They've got they got to go to Denver as well. We keep talking about this Broncos team. Are they the number one seed? But they've got some huge games, and they got the Jags as well to come. Like, that's going to be a stellar game for the Jags. Can they get over the line, that type of game? But right now, I picked them at the start of the season. Connor, I'm still confident. I think they're a sneaky team going into the playoffs that could do damage.
Shane, the Bengals, we saw them play in Orchard Park in a legendary playoff game when they made their Super Bowl run some years ago. And there's that iconic clip of Joe Burrow flicking the ball and then turning around in the warm-up and it just dropping perfectly into the receiver's hands. And that Joe Burrow showed up for the early part of the game against the Bills. This was just if you wanted the iconic December football game, snow in Orchard Park, two absolute star quarterbacks playing for the most part to their absolute best. Like, it's hard to believe these teams managed to put up over 70 points in those conditions. It was just a filthy day to be playing, and yet we saw some of the most outrageous skill plays, both from the quarterbacks and from the receivers, like an absolute circus catch from T. Higgins to get the Bengals back in it at the end. It was the Bills defense that managed to perform the magic just at the right time, though, to get them over the line. But what a game.
Oh, it was an amazing game. And if you take out just two plays from Joe Burrow, you would say this is almost like the perfect quarterback matchup you could have in December. And just to your point, Connor, like I've often said here that, I've questioned whether Joe Burrow should have came back for Cincinnati. I know obviously footballers want to play football, and that's fair enough. I've often said that the weakness for Cincinnati over the course of the season is not being a quarterback; it's been everywhere else. But holy Jesus, when Joe Burrow is back under center, you look at the accuracy, you look at the energy from the rest of the players, you look at how attentive the defense is. You look at how.
I used to wonder why people made a difference or distinction between ball placement and accuracy until you see somebody like Joe Burrow playing. You're like, wow, every time a receiver catches the ball, they're turned in the right direction, they're faced away from the defender, they're where they need to be to make a play after they get the ball. Nobody has to check back to get a Burrow pass. It leads you on to where you need to go as a receiver. He's just something special.
Yeah, and it comes to a point as well where there's quarterbacks who have to put an effort to make sure that they're cohesive with their receivers, that everything sort of works right in the choreography of running a play. Joe Burrow makes it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. So it's an amazing thing to see. And then obviously on the flip side, Josh Allen as well is no slouch, and they're very much on the tear as well. I just it's just interesting though to see this, like the difference in efficiency from Cincinnati in this game. They're 10 of 12 on third down. They never had to go for it on fourth down. They were able to keep things rushing, and it's such a frustrating thing from their point of view that the two interceptions back to back at a key point of the fourth quarter when they were so far up ended up being their undoing. But I think this is also a nice mental boost for the Bills, because if they ended up coming away from that one, it meant that even if they it would have been very going into playing against the Patriots really, really behind the eight ball in terms of their own division. They would have dropped another one in a place where they didn't really need to, and it would have been question marks over their ability to be offensively solid, because in the earlier parts of the game, let's not forget that the Bills defense made the plays in the end. The Bills were able to score consistently over there, but there was a couple of times as the run game, they played like they were playing in the snow, in the way that the Bengals never played like they were playing in the snow. They always looked like they were playing in sunshine. So look, fantastically entertaining game as we can always expect between these two, but I think I still just look at those interceptions, especially the second one, which led to Buffalo getting a touchdown after they were 29 yards away. Is a really, really frustrating one.
While we're on that second INT, Brian, that brings up one of your favorite points in Coach's Corner. Zach Taylor, what are you doing?
Oh, absolutely. What are you doing? Like, people are suggesting he's on the hot seat. I feel he should be on the hot seat for some of his play calling decisions. Joe Burrow is a fantastic quarterback. there's many a quarterback in the league who, no matter what the circumstance are, in that moment, you need to give them a little bit of a breather. He chose the interception. He comes back in. His first immediate play is the next interception. Like, the nature of that interception and the pick six was weird. I said it to Shane last night in the instant reaction. I didn't know whether he was throwing it, whether he was trying to hand it off, whether it was unusual. And for him to come in, it just felt like he had his mind on that particular play. And in that situation, you need your head coach not to put his arm around, but call some plays that allow him to alleviate the pressure in the ears. A couple of run plays, get the drive going again, and then let him go and do the dirty work in terms of getting down the field again and finding Higgins and Chase. I just felt in that moment, the game got completely away from them where it didn't have to be, because I thought the head coach could have done a little bit better in that situation.
One of the things I particularly enjoy about the matchup between these two teams, Brian, it was very much in evidence last night, is Burrow and Allen are brilliant quarterbacks, but they're brilliant in very different ways. It's the contrasting styles. Burrow, just a laser accurate, preternaturally gifted pocket passer. Allen, the playmaker, who is just elite with his legs. I mean, that rushing touchdown he got where he just steps up in the pocket. There's two pass rushers coming from him. Bang, he goes between the gap and just takes off. And I don't want to overemphasize what he can do with his legs, because there was the touchdown throw to Shakir where he fits the ball between two Bengals helmets. Like, there's no gap there. The players just turn and he lasers the ball through and hits the receiver when it just wasn't there. It's not so much a tight window throw, it's a non-existent throw, a non-existent window. It's let's just put it through a fucking wall.
Yeah, so you're talking about Joey Cool, and then you're talking about your quarterback that plays with his hair on fire. That's what it felt like last night. Josh Allen, you know, we see two different sides of Josh Allen. I think we've seen a more mature Josh Allen over the last two or 3 years, where he kind of is composed in certain big moments. But last night it felt like this game's getting away from his guys. We got to get that Josh Allen again with the cape on, the hair on fire. 51-yard, was a 51-yard rushing touchdown. Connor, I think his over-under with Quinbet was 13.5 yards to be rushing. I mean, he nearly had that done in the first half, because I think he acknowledged that our defense isn't slowing this Bengals offense down today. We're going to have to put it on ourselves offensively, which hasn't been the case in some games this season. It's going to be the different story where the defense has come up big, and it did come up big to a certain part. But yeah, Josh Allen last night was Josh Allen, which we were seeing a couple of years ago, where he's running around, and that concerns you as well. Like, can you continue with that throughout the course of the season? Does that get you all the way to the Super Bowl? Because we have seen in the past, eventually you run out of steam in that type of situation.
But what I do love about this time of year with Allen is he's gotten better at deciding, and I'm going to drop a Flight of the Conchords reference in here. It might be over the heads, but he knows when it's business time. It's business. It's business time. And he just puts on that cape.
The karaoke machine is out, Shane. Yeah, well, this is it. Like, he acknowledges in situations where he's the leader of this team. Whether people believe it or not, he is the leader of his team, and he has, in some instances, he has to find a way to get them over the line. That's what it felt like last night. Earlier on, you're watching it, it's in a snowstorm. The Bengals are moving the ball continuously. You're thinking, can the Bills' offense continue to deliver them? They found a way in the end, but it's only set up for a huge game on this weekend, Connor. Can't wait for that one.
Shane, back to cooking for the Vikings Commanders game. JJ McCarthy is cooking. I'm like Ron Burgundy reading the auto cue here with the question mark at the end.
I don't know. Is it cooking, or was he given a nice piece of microwavable meals for him to?
Has this guy thrown for more than 200 yards in a game yet?
Can't believe this game is on the sheet. Sorry, guys.
No, but we have, but like I actually cannot believe this, because I think we have to, like, they go from the offense. I know JJ McCarthy was a play last week, but the offense is giving absolutely nothing to scoring 31 to zip. The Commanders, I think, have checked out. They've already booked their tickets to go watch Ireland versus Mexico in Mexico City in June. They're heading to Cancun. They're going to they're going to Merida. They're doing the whole tour of Mexico already.
I think they're watching Ireland.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. We're manifesting, Brian. We're manifesting. But the thing about the Vikings scores, they were 14-0 up early in the second quarter by the time Jane Daniels goes out hurt. They were 5-5 on third down. But basically what it was is the design plays that you practiced all week were executed really, really well by the whole team. And the Vikings defense were awake. They made sure that they were able to get turnovers at key moments in the second half. So I think just on the JJ McCarthy point, you want the pass. When for some reason, whenever he feels confident, he can rip a really, really fast, direct fastball pass, and he did it really well yesterday. But I just wonder I just wonder whether this is more of a Kevin O'Connell creation, that everything, the first 10 plays which you rehearse all week, just worked really well for everybody involved in terms of like the little pitching and plays. They were really creative. They kind of had to be. But I had to put it on here just as a quick sort of ending point before we go on and talk about the game of the week,
I
because
think
it was just remarkable.
it's very early to be saying this, and we still haven't seen an awful lot of him. But like a lot of people have serious concerns with JJ McCarthy. Like he's starting to look more and more like the Moneyball archetype, a player who looks the part, who, as you say, can throw one of those fastballs every now and again that just makes you think, oh, this is the guy, and you're ignoring the 90% of his game that's just. Yeah, I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim.
Jaden Daniels, Brian.
Connor, can I make a quick point? Sorry. Jaden Daniels, same draft as JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy goes, 11 to the Vikings, and Daniels goes 2. But it was really interesting at the time when we were doing our live piece in Cork, which I always remember Shane's great quote where I know nothing. But
I love that that's what you remember. You remember that I said I know nothing. Nothing else. Nothing else.
I think it was in a surprise to nobody, I know nothing.
4-hour live broadcast.
And a surprise. Well, that was the Atlanta Falcons that made me feel that way, and they still make me feel that way. It's amazing.
What was striking at the time was there was teams really desperate for quarterbacks in the top 10, and JJ McCarthy fell out of the top 10, and the Falcons took Penix 8 when people didn't think he was even close to that piece, and yet they elected over McCarthy, which for me was interesting. Kind of sold the story of not many people were all in on JJ McCarthy, maybe with the exception of the Vikings. Sorry, Shane.
I was going to say, we were all expecting Penix to go in the second round. Remember that? Hence why I said I know nothing. Yeah. So just to your point, though, the fact that he's going to skip the queue in that point, I think maybe is coming back. But
was John Harbaugh, his college coach, even all in on JJ McCarthy when he was making him hand the ball off and run when they actually needed to win?
He was all in on somebody else drafting him. Let's be fair about this. He was talking the talk, but the Chargers were never going near him. Not that he needed.
He was doing a solid for his mate, as they say.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, Brian, I was just going to say, from a Dan Quinn perspective, we talked about, and Dan Quinn held his hands up on this one, saying that Jaden Daniels shouldn't have been in that game when he got injured. The Commanders were being blown out, and they should have pulled him for the backup at that point. But they're putting him at risk again. I mean, he came down heavily on the elbow at one point when he was sacked and had to go into the injury tent. And you're going, like, this season is cooked. Literally, the Commanders are done. Why put your prize asset at risk? It just seems to me to be crazy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Connor. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That game on the Sunday Night Football against the Seahawks, when, as you said, it was late fourth quarter and he gets the injury, and it was like there was nothing in the game. They'd been blown out. They'd been blown out yesterday. In fairness, he's come out today at his press conference and said, I could have put him back in yesterday. We got the all clear to put him back in, but I felt it wasn't appropriate because of the nature of the game. I've learned my mistake from the last time. We're getting absolutely blown out again. I'm not going to put him in. They're playing the Giants this weekend, and absolutely nothing came for both sides. So it'd be interesting to see if they do put him in. Zach Ertz is also gone for the season. They confirmed that's an ACL tear as well. So they've had a really difficult Sunday, but it doesn't make any sense. Because Mariota played reasonably quite well last weekend in Sunday Night Football against the Broncos. It's not like they have gone off the scale where they haven't had a quarterback that can come in and actually be really, really not necessarily.
It's not like Max Brosmer is the next guy up. Oh my God, the Ali Daya of the NFL.
Yeah, I'm still remembering Mike Glennon a couple of years ago playing for the Giants quarterback. Kind of like
I still remember. I still remember him playing for the Bears after he'd already been found out, and they still thought that he was working.
And Jake Fromm came in for Mike Glennon. So look, there is teams that cannot move the ball whatsoever when they go to a second or third string quarterback. In fairness to Mariota, He'll give you a productive performance. He did last weekend, got the game into overtime, and they're going to probably have to bring him in next weekend because there's no point playing Jaden Daniels. He clearly isn't ready to be playing again at the level, and it's kind of evident in the performance which we saw yesterday.
Things got hot in the frozen tundra of Lambeau over the weekend. We're going there next. This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns, Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Yes, if you're joining us late, irishnflshow.com/tours is where you can register your interest. Well, Shane, we lived that game in Lambeau over the weekend, exactly as promised. It's a rivalry that is the NFL's oldest and most frequently played in the history of the NFL. Hasn't been particularly enticing for the last decade or so, but boy, it was back with a bang in that game at Lambeau. Packers looked like they were going to dominate early. Bears do what they've done most of this season, bounce back, put the ball on the floor and punch holes in what was previously a pretty indomitable Packers defense. Bears driving to tire, win the game at the end. Great play by Keyshawn Nixon in the end zone to intercept. Like, this game had everything.
This game did have everything, and as well as that, it's really nice when you get a rivalry between two teams who are really coming to the boil at the same time. I have to say, if I was trying to go on irishnflshow.com/tours and trying to register my interest as to where in the country I would like to go to get a chance to see the Chicago team and Green Bay in both of those stadiums, but also to see these teams being electric, as there probably will be now for the next few years, is going to be something great. I mean, it's really interesting watching most of the reaction today. Is that the Bears lost, but out of all the losses you could have asked for, it's one that still confirms that they are legitimate. That even though there's a lot of close wins over the course of the season, there's still a team to be reckoned with. There's still a force that you must prepare for and be ready for, and are still going to be very much in the conversation come playoff time. I certainly think so. I haven't completely lost faith in them, even though in the first half, their offenses really couldn't get going. I think that to me is a disappointment, because Caleb and Co kept everything interesting in the second half, even though he seemed allergic to staying inside the pocket. Even at times when he didn't have to come out, he came out and he limited himself to only having one side of the field to throw to, which is generally his right-hand side. It definitely seems to, I don't know, when there's like a lean at the snooker table, it feels like he seemed to always go to that sideline of Lambeau in the fourth quarter. So that's an area that needs to be improved. Obviously, third down efficiency, you're looking at about 50% for Chicago, which again, when you're looking for where's the clutch gene, where's the next step in the Chicago development, that's something which is coming in. But I mean, how can you really, really be disappointed if you're Chicago when you get beaten by a Packers team who threw some lovely touchdowns and Jordan Love just looked confident in what they were able to do, a defense that seemed alert and awake for most of the game, and it took control in the first half. And as I generally say here, one good half of football is not good enough to win in the NFL, especially when you get into the old squeaky bum time of the year. And that's just the case for the Chicago offense. But no, I think these two teams match up again, not this coming weekend, but next week. That's going to be a humdinger of a game as well. I know there's a bit of personal spice between Ben Johnson, because he said, I really like beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. And Matt LaFleur is like, I don't even know who Ben Johnson is. Which of course is going to keep things rolling. But but to me, I think what I need to see more of is that Caleb Williams can just calm down a little bit in the pocket, keep the field open to him, but make sure that, especially in that first sections of the game, that they take control earlier and don't wait until they have to read defenses to change what their offense does. Because I felt like that's what they did yesterday. They saw what Green Bay were putting on the plate and then changed the plan in the second half to good effect, but it felt a little bit too late, and they were giving themselves, if you're always chasing a comeback, at what point does a good team just stop the comeback? And that's kind of what happened for Green Bay yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interested in your take, Brian. Obviously, I'm horribly biased, but things that we knew going into the game that were confirmed, there's no doubt that the Packers are Super Bowl contenders. Jordan Love is starting to round into the form of his life, and we know what he can do. We saw it against the Cowboys in Arlington a couple of years ago when they won that playoff game in his first season proper, even though he'd been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years learning his craft. We know that Packers defense is among the best in the league. We know the Bears can run the ball as well as any team in the National Football League. We also know that the Bears defense is flawed, and we know that the passing game isn't where it should be. And was interesting listening to Micah Parsons interviewed after the game by the sideline reporter Stacey Dales, and he was saying he found Caleb Williams mad annoying because he just couldn't lay it low him. He said, I will get him, but he couldn't quite get to him, and ended up spending a time on the sideline. He was gassed at a point in the second half where the Bears were just pounding the ball over and over again, and finally able to do to the Packers what they'd done to the Eagles the previous week. Couldn't run at all really in the first half, but got it going in the second half, and really looked like they had the Packers where they wanted to at one point. But, credit Green Bay. They were able to find explosive plays again and again. Love picked his passes beautifully, isolated receivers against safeties time and time again when he needed to, and got it done. But I thought, watching it, that's as well as the Packers can probably play. I thought the Bears actually have a lot of room for improvement, which gave me a lot of hope watching it, thinking, yeah, they're definitely, they came up short against a better team, a team that deserved to win over the course of the 4 quarters. The third and fourth quarter, you might say the Bears were on top for a good bit of that time, but I thought there was no complaints with the team that won. But this, to Shane's point, I think is going to be an intriguing rivalry for years to come, because it's hard not to appreciate the progress that the Bears are making now. They're winning games that they were losing last year, but they're improving as the season goes along. There's no way, and the nearest comparison I can think for this is the Bears' loss in Baltimore, where they started well. Ravens punched them a couple of times in the face, and then the game got away from them. They ended up losing by 17 points. That doesn't look like it's going to happen to this Bears team down the stretch. They look like even when they get floored, they can find a way to get back up. And Ben Johnson's commitments to the run game is admirable. It reminds me of what Mark Schlereth was saying to us when we interviewed him in the offseason, that he got mad at offensive coordinators who get away from the run when 2 or 3 runs don't go well. He said, you're running the ball so that you can set up the situation which the Bears had in the fourth quarter, where the defense is gassed. Then you can run play action, and you can really gut a team when you have them where you want them.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan probably needs to take notes of certain games in which he should have kept the effective run game going. He might have had a Super Bowl or 2. It's weird when you watch an NFL game, and we've been here before in the past, Conor, and a lot of the points I'm making are very much, we're on the same page. You watch a game over the course of 4 quarters, and you say, okay, despite the team coming out on the wrong side of the result, when they play through again, you get that sense of the result may not be the same, the next time around. And we're going to have this very quickly Saturday week when they play each other, obviously going into the early hours of Sunday morning. But I felt as a total performance, I thought the Bears were the better side. I know there was patches in the first half where it took a while for them to get going, but you look at the game over the course of 4 quarters.
I don't think they were, though, with respect. And the execution was poor, particularly defensively. Like, somebody described it brilliantly, and I wish I could remember who said this in their report so I could attribute it properly. The Bears play bend and then break your heart on defense. They either get a turnover or you can blow them open, and the Packers were able to blow them open. The Bears' tackling defensively was very poor, like exemplified by that Josh Jacobs run, which set up the go-ahead touchdown for the Packers, where he ran through 3 players. Packers, on the other hand, when they needed the big tackles, when they needed the big stops, most notably on Monungai on the final drive, which sets up the fourth and 1, where Caleb takes a gamble and gets intercepted. They were there all day long. Their players stepped up and did exactly what they needed to do in all situations. The Bears condensed their performance into quarter and a bit.
I would say there's 2 explosive plays in the game that were heartbreakers for the Bears, and that's ultimately what got the Packers over the line. I know the drive at the end where you said they stalled them on the run game, but it was the nature of the 2 touchdowns that I'm going to refer to. One before halftime, Conor, because there was very little time on the clock. You're thinking, most fans watching the game last night are thinking, okay, the worst case scenario here for the Bears is that they're going to drive down and they're going to kick a field goal. Well, they go and get a touchdown, and then having got back in the game and tied it up to give away another big touchdown score to Watson. That's the crucial part of the game. Outside of those 2 players, how many huge plays did the Packers offense have? They had some nice plays here and there, but I thought over the course of the 4 quarters, I thought the Bears defense did a really good job on them, but with the exception of 2 big plays. I know Packers fans will turn around and say, yeah, but that's the nature of an offense in which we've put together here now. We're in a position to make those explosive plays. I get all that, but more about the timing of when those touchdowns happened were really significant. And they're the only gotchas in the Bears defense performance for me. And as the game evolved, I thought the Bears offense was the better of the 2. I said on the instant reaction, I know we spoke about it separately today, I didn't like the play call again. I know you've got a rationale as to why it was a good play call, and you haven't looked at it again. Even to your point, DJ Moore was clearly wide open, but he'd made the decision from going to the tight ends. But bearing in mind how well they played the second half in running the ball, I thought it would be more appropriate in that particular instance to try take the yard and then obviously you're giving yourself 3 shots to win the game because ultimately they would have went for the 2 points in the end. But I think to your point as well, this isn't a Bears team that are getting punched in the mouth and then going away like that Ravens game or other games earlier in the season. This is a Bears team that now go, fine, we're behind. We can honestly, we now have a situation where we know how to evolve into games and get the job done. Fortunately, it could have been, but it wasn't.
And from a Packers point of view, Shane, they go away with something to think about as well. You look at how that Jeff Hafley defense was exposed in the running game in the second half. And I think if I'm the 49ers, if I'm the Seahawks, if I'm the Rams, all teams that the Packers they're going to play one or more of those teams in the playoffs by the looks of it, the way things are going. They're all teams that could comfortably implement a similar game plan that the Bears did, where you had that Packers pass rush gassed, where Micah Parsons has to take time out on the sideline, where you're thinking, if that defense is back on the field quickly, the Bears are going to have their way with them.
Yeah, and what's also interesting from the Packers' point of view is I think they need to show the world that they don't always just play to the level of their opponents, because like their defense sees an offense which has a fantastic O-line, gets a quick start in the front and takes control, but yet when they're playing against lower ranked teams, they don't necessarily seem to show up. I think for me, it's more about making sure that when they're getting pressures, that they're still sort of covering at the right moments. I mean, they were able to get a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams last night, but then the wide receivers, even though Caleb's given them the more predictable side of the field that they're going on, they're letting separation happen, which we didn't necessarily see in other parts of the game. But not that I'm not worried about it, but again, consistency is key for what you're able to do at this time of the year. And the Packers defense, I think, has been able to show itself to be consistently inconsistent, particularly at the front line. And Micah Parsons played some great games, against great opposition. We saw him against, the Steelers and Sunday Night Football, how, if he picked the lane, he was great on the inside, but not great on the outside. Last night, he managed to get a lot of pressure on the outside, but then, had themselves out of the game for certain parts of it. So it's just about making sure that there's a level of consistency going further into the year. But I'm not quite pressing the panic button on it just yet, but they have a lot of difficult teams to play up for the rest of the season.
Brian, one quick point before we move on to the Bucks.
Yeah, I had a Packers fan today say to me, we might see the Super Bowl this Sunday, as in this is the game we might see in Santa Clara. The Packers are on the road against the Broncos this weekend. So a Broncos-Packers Super Bowl has been suggested by a few people who was reaching out to me today. Probably would make for a fantastic game, but I don't think Kieran O'Donovan and other Packers fans would be able to live with the stress of that particular game. And then other people.
And I'd be sitting beside Kieran O'Donovan watching this in Santa Clara, worrying about the Packers winning. No, that's
and are the Broncos winning? There's no happy ending there, Connor.
Who do you cheer against? Yeah.
Rematch of Super Bowl 32 as well. Which the Broncos won. So I don't know if that's a result that you don't want more. It's definitely a result that I don't want more.
Great John Elway Netflix documentary, but it looks at the content that's been shared so far coming this Christmas.
Shane, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we were talking about them as a sneaky Super Bowl pick just a few weeks back. Really not having a good run in and upended by their division rival, the Saints, at the weekend in a game that really you would have thought was a gimme.
That's the nature of divisional football. Games that you think are gimmies end up turning out to not to be. And like the Saints have shown themselves to be able to do this against their divisional opponents over the last couple of years. And even when they play bad, they seem to burn themselves up for games like this. I think the key aspect here is, and look, like it's where we're saying this about Florida, but the conditions did kind of get in the way. There's a lot of slippy play here, but the amount of missed tackles from the defense when Shook had the ball, when the Saints were passing around, was just was very frustrating to watch. Actually, I mean, like when you're willing on the Buccaneers to show themselves to still be at the level that we seen them play in the early parts of the year, and it just seems like the defense is it's got to be just a bit soft. I'm not trying to knock down Tyler Shook being able to to make runs, which he does a lot better than make passes. When he was sort of taking control at certain parts of the game yesterday. I mean, like obviously, like that Shook pick to McCullen was ridiculous. It was a terrible pass from Tyler Shook, but then Tampa doesn't seem to really gain momentum from that and try to expose a team which made a ridiculous mistake as being quite clearly the bottom feeders of the division. Obviously, I mean, Evans being out is obviously hurting their offense, but it's the defense which I'm really struggling to comprehend in terms of scheme. I think that they didn't seem to read what New Orleans are doing in terms of when they were running, when Shook was able to run, where they're trying to contain him. They didn't do a great job of containing him at all. And then in the fourth quarter, just in the quality of tackling, that's a key area they have to improve on, because they're coming up against the Panthers twice in two key divisional matchups. And if they let Rico Dowdle run riot in either of those games for the Panthers, or if they let the Panthers get into a situation where they can keep things unpredictable, if your defenses can't read what's happening in front of you, you're going to end up getting picked up in key moments, as what happened yesterday.
Brian, I'm glad Shane mentions the Panthers, because they're the big winners here. They're on a bye, so they're well rested. The Bucks fall on their face in a game that I'm sure even in Carolina they were expecting would have gone the other way, and now they've got them lined up twice, and they have the division in their hands, basically. I mean, it's all in their hands to go and win it. If they win those games, they're going to come out on top, and they're going to be heading to the playoffs.
Yeah, they've got the Saints this weekend, which looks a very winnable game. Saints have played quite well lately. I think ultimately it's going to come down to kind of when they go into Tampa. Like, I could see them turning them over at home. Like, you had a great interview with Ron Rivera last week, his former head coach, and he even, he kind of questioned their form away from home in terms of going on the road, a mixed bag of results, but more so the nature of the results on the road. They've been fairly comprehensively taken care of on the road, but they've been really strong at home. I think ultimately it's going to come down to, can they get themselves, do they genuinely believe that they're at the level in which they can go into Tampa and win these games? When the weather in Tampa, it was a similar circumstance when the Patriots went down there and played there recently, Connor. When the weather is off in Tampa, the Bucks, they don't seem to be able to handle it. The road team seems to handle the situation better than the actual home team. I think that game is week 18. It makes for a great game, but even if they were to lose the home game, they'd probably still have a chance to go in there and win it. But it's the belief that this head coach has put in, and I believe we spoke last night about Bryce Young. Like, we're 2 or 3 years ago, we're talking about this guy is even going to be in the league in a couple of years, and now he's literally on the cusp of potentially shocking everybody. Because I think if the Panthers were to win the division, like, there's been some shocks this year, but this would be the biggest shock of the season for me.
Shane, another shock over the weekend, although not quite at that magnitude, was the Titans beating the Browns. A bit of a bottom feeder bowl here, but Brian was delighted because it advances the Giants' prospects of getting the number 1 overall pick. It just hasn't gone to plan at all for the Titans this year. On an interim head coach, Cam Ward really hasn't been well handled in his first season in the NFL. Big documentary series out on him at the moment. Zero star for the Titans organization for what they've done around him this season, but he did get the win over the weekend. Him up against Shedeur was an entertaining enough matchup in the end. 60 points in this one.
Yeah, it was, in fairness. Although the extent to which either quarterback was really the architect of that could be debatable, because Tony Pollard did most of the running for the Titans, running in 2 long-range touchdowns. And again, to the similar point of what I was talking about with Tampa Bay, it seems like the Cleveland defense, excellently strong, you think to be putting tape up in the lead to try and prove themselves to still be the formidable unit, the best defense that people aren't talking about. And it looks like they're already in Cancun. That's just the way that they treated some of those 2 running plays in particular from Tony Pollard. Interesting with Shedeur is, like, he got a really nice pass to Jerry Jeudy, which ended up being a 60-yard touchdown. But then later on, it feels like every time Shedeur dropped back, he dropped back about 50 yards. He might as well have been in Michigan trying to make the pass. It was ridiculous. And it's like, talk about trying to stay in the pocket. He keeps running back and then running back again, and then trying to find his man, and wonders why the pass keeps dropping shorter. He has to keep throwing it over the sideline because he's giving the Tennessee defense an entire, vista. Everything you see is where Shedeur can't throw the ball. So it was just an interesting one. I was watching back this morning. Just a point on the Titans. People are looking at this and saying, it's people who are fans of losing teams get frustrated when they start winning at this time of year and say, look, we're going to be losing out on draft capital. I still think there's great value in teams, both the Browns and Titans, in this situation. And just being able to find victories, I think, in terms of the morale of the group, in terms of being able to tell yourself, not only there's tape and players trying to get jobs elsewhere, but just being able to sort of prove yourself that maybe you can build into the future. There's nothing like winning football that can help breed a future of winning football, even if draft capital, and we might be saying when we're sitting here recording in February, March, being like, I don't know if that win against Cleveland might really help them out as third in the draft. But no, I mean, look, nice to see Cam Ward getting another victory in the league. He's had a tough go of it this year.
Brian, the thing about tanking is, and I remember reading an article about this, and it's the side you don't think about is, firstly, it's putting players at risk. Secondly, people are going to lose their jobs. So you want to see teams playing hard and doing their bit towards the end of the season. It was good to see both the Titans and the Browns putting it up to one another. Nothing really at stake other than pride, but it ended up being an entertaining game for all that.
Well, players are playing for their careers and their next port of call. Kind of like players who are with the Browns now and with the Titans may not necessarily be there next year, but they're thinking further afield in terms of trying to find themselves a team. Some players that are on the, I saw a number of players offensive line for Titans. And they're not necessarily journeymen, but they're not going to be there next year. And they're obviously thinking, I've got to solidify a performance here over the course of the next few weeks to put myself in the shop window, come free agents for these opportunities elsewhere. Because it's interesting, you see players like Zeitler playing now for the Titans. He had a fantastic career with the Ravens. He was with the Giants for a period of time. I think he's even with the Lions, and now all of a sudden he's down the wrong end of the league playing for the Titans. But you touched on there, like the draft is what the draft is. We saw last year we get so hung up 2 or 3 weeks towards the end of the season on teams down the back end who are having a difficult season around. They shouldn't win. The reality is on Sunday, like the Giants are a prime example this weekend. I know you joked earlier about them holding the first place in the draft. They won't by the end of the season. They're playing the Commanders this weekend. They've got the Vikings. They got the Raiders. They're all someone has to win these games. So inevitably, there'll be fallout from some fan base around, we had that pick. I think it's a case of, let's just see how it plays out. And ultimately, what will be, because there's some teams that are starved of a quarterback who have a lot of capital to play with, including those Jets. They're probably going to be the talking point of the offseason for me around draft period.
Mendoza! That's all
That
I'll
is
be
the
screaming.
one. That is the one.
Mendoza! Yeah.
I used to see you, Mendoza.
He's very much in God's camp.
Anyway.
Anyway.
All day.
No respect to the religious people out there, but I mean, he must have spoke about God about 100 times more than he actually talked about the game.
Isn't that what American football is?
Yeah. Will he be able to deal with New York? That's an interesting one, because
that's the I don't want to cut across to like the main talk, but like the thing about like there's a generation now of these like dork quarterbacks, and I mean that in actually a very like a affectionate way. And these are like they're great guys. You can guarantee they're not going to be caught, drinking at 4 a.m. on a Saturday night before the game is on. But like, can they? I'm looking at Mendoza. I'm like, don't feed him to the New York Jets wolves. He's going to be torn apart there. But anyway, we have a long off season to worry about that.
We do indeed. We have the AV Club on Wednesday. Got Thursday Night Football preview coming to you the following day. Then we're live again on Thursday evening, heading into the week 15 action. All 32 teams playing that weekend. All the buys are done. We say goodbye to the buys and we say hello to the end of the season.